Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Steve.
So we are going to talk about
Rage.
I think of you, Cheryl, as a very positive and upbeat person, but I do.
Yeah,
and
I
so
am.
my question is, are there moments where that has not been the case, where you have been out of control angry?
It depends what you mean by out of control. I do sometimes lose it, and I'll tell you this. I didn't ever really have to consciously think about my anger and how I express my anger until I became a mother and was every day confronted with some outrage that puts me in touch with my rage. And I've had to figure out how to manage that. I've had to be mindful of those expressions in a way that I never had to before. What about you?
Well, I asked that question partly because I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, maybe it was a year, got into a very difficult situation at home, a fight, and just smashed a dish in Aaron's presence with one of my kids in the kitchen, and just smashed a beautiful bowl that my brother made, oddly enough. And it was just a moment where I realized, when rage emerges, I believe it is always guarding sorrow, but more than that, I believe that it's coming from someplace more than what is in that room. It's been years in the making, and there are situations that might provoke it, but when it comes from down deep, it's trauma that resides in our past that we haven't somehow contended with. And when I smashed that bowl, I sort of had several days or weeks to say, what happened? When that gasket blew, how many years had that engine been rattling and loosening it up? More and more and more. And so the letters we're going to look at today, in these instances, what do we do when there are circumstances that have happened in our life, losses that we've suffered that blindside us, for which the appropriate human response is rage? What do you do then?
Yeah, well, let's get to the letters.
Let's do it. Dear Sugars, about 3 years ago, I was standing in my kitchen holding a sonogram picture which confirmed that after a grace-filled quick round of fertility treatment, I was in fact pregnant. I felt pure elation. My husband and I had been together 10 years, and we'd been trying to build a family. Up until then, our marriage was uneventful. We had our ups and downs, but we rarely quarreled and seemed to grow stronger as the years progressed. Fertility treatment had not been excessively stressful. We always had a decent sex life. We traveled. We had adventures. I loved him, and I loved our marriage. But on this evening, as I stood in our kitchen, excited over my pregnancy, he told me he didn't feel as though we were a team. He said he would be relieved if I lost the baby we had just created with great intention, even paying doctors to help us conceive. To say I was in complete shock would be an understatement. In the 9 months that followed, all through my pregnancy, my husband didn't commit to wanting or not wanting our marriage. He told me he was leaving me because I hadn't been supportive. When asked for specifics, he blamed me for things like not being enthusiastic about taking naps together or making dinner for his friends. Seriously. My husband insisted there was no one else, though I had my doubts. He moved out. I continued to wonder. Grief and confusion overtook my life. I cried myself to sleep every night and contemplated suicide. After wanting to be pregnant for so long, I was now going through the most difficult time of my life. I wasn't sure what my future had in store, but I knew I couldn't stay in the same city where we'd built a life. I also knew I needed family support, so during my pregnancy, I packed up our house, cared for our pets, worked full-time, and continued to have no idea what happened in my marriage. Our daughter was born, and I gave her the name Grace as a middle name, because she was quite literally my saving grace. I knew I had to go on for her sake. After our daughter was born, my husband tried to reconcile. By chance, I managed to finally find confirmation that he was in fact with another woman, a former office intern 10 years our junior. He was lying to me and lying to her. I could not reconcile with someone that destroyed every ounce of self-confidence and trust I once had. I told them reconciliation was not possible. I raised my daughter completely on my own for the first 7 months as I built a new life in a new city. Within the year, he had moved to my new location, and within another year, he was remarried and soon a new father. As a result, I have consistent contact with him because we co-parent. I cannot fault him as a parent. After the first 7 months during which I parented alone, he became a consistent and engaged father. But despite the fact that he has become a good father and moved on with his life, and despite the fact that it has been almost 3 years of separation, I cannot let go of the anger. This is why I write you, sugars. I don't know how to move on from the anger, and it is bleeding into all the other parts of my life. I can't bear to look my ex in the face when we have to see each other. Our exchanges are quick and emotionless. I know if I look him in the eyes or speak more than necessary, my hate will show through. I think others assume perhaps I still love him, but this is not the case. Instead, I am so angry at him for ruining a time of my life that I had wanted so badly, a happy pregnancy and new motherhood. I hate that his actions caused my life to become something I would have never imagined. There are many good things in my life, and I recognize that, but still, I am angry. It's an anger that tears at me from the inside, an anger that makes me physically ill at times. I'm so angry that he has moved on so quickly and now has everything I wanted, a family, a house, a good job, when I feel I had to make so many hard choices and give up so much because of his infidelity and abandonment. I hate that I no longer trust other human beings. I hate that I have to share time with my daughter. I envy other families and their happiness. If you knew me, you would never know this because I tuck it deep inside. No one likes an angry, hate-filled person, so I pretend. I talk about single parenting and the joys of independence. Sometimes I do feel this way, but mostly I feel hate and anger and envy. I don't know how to move on. I've tried talking to my best friend, the one person I feel I can confide in truthfully. I've tried writing, I've tried medication, I've tried running, and yet the anger still boils up inside and causes me so much sadness. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in anger, and the only thing that pulls me up is my daughter. As she grows, I don't want her to start to sense this anger. I don't want her to hold the burden of being my one source of happiness. How do I forgive and let go and move forward? By outside appearances, I've done all these things, but inside I know this is not true. Inside, I'm still so broken, angry, and sad. Please, help me forgive and move on. Signed, Drowning in Anger.
Do you know the story of how Serena Williams met her husband? A chance encounter at the pool. He had just got out of a 5-year relationship and it was love at first sight. That would be such a cute story if it was true. When Alexis met and started pursuing Serena, he was still in a 5-year relationship. I am Chocolatka and I make videos to empower you to glow up from the inside out. In today's video, we're going to take a look at Alexis's current and most previous relationships and their overlapping timelines. Following that, the purpose of the video, we're going to look at the plethora of lessons that can be learned from this situation so that we don't have to make the same mistakes and get our time wasted. Specific things you can do to ensure that you don't end up being a placeholder. I'll see you again in the lessons chapter of this video. For now, let's get into it. Before we get started, let me briefly introduce the 3 people in today's cautionary tale. Serena Williams is a now retired tennis champion who holds 23 Grand Slam titles and 4 Olympic gold medals. She made her professional debut at 14 and has created a powerful legacy in both sports and culture. Her husband is Alexis Ohanian. I mispronounced his name in the intro. He's a tech entrepreneur and investor. Aside from being married to the Queen of Tennis, he's known for being the co-founder and former executive chairman of Reddit. His former long-term partner, Dr. Sabria Stukes, is also an entrepreneur and investor, as well as a microbiologist and immunologist. Before transitioning into the business world, she earned her PhD in biomedical sciences. I'm going to refer to her as Bria from this point on. You try saying Sabria and Serena 10 times fast, and you'll understand why. Now that we've got the introductions out of the way, let's look at the timeline, starting with Bria and Alexis's 5.5-year relationship. The pair first met when they were studying at the University of Virginia. Bria was looking for her friend and wandered into Alexis's dorm room. She told the New York Times, "I asked him where my friend was. He said, I don't know," and then went back to playing video games. Eventually, the two both ended up in the Big Apple. He had bought an apartment in Brooklyn Heights, and she was getting her PhD in the Bronx. Eventually, though, Alexis moved to San Francisco. According to Christine Lagorio-Chapkin's book about the founding of Reddit, Alexis had found his relationship difficult to maintain since spending so much time in California. Throughout their relationship, Bria was a very supportive girlfriend, always hyping him up and posting him on her social media. She also accompanied him at big events, and at the end of April 2015, she joined him on his birthday trip to Greece and Armenia. The couple decided that once she finished her PhD the following month, she would come to California and move in with him. She spent the month preparing by putting all her things in storage, saying bye to friends, and letting her lease expire. While that was going on, he took a solo trip to Rome to speak at the Festival of Media conference. Someone else was in Rome at that time, and I'm sure you can guess who. None other than Serena Williams. She was there to play at the Italian Open and happened to be staying at the same hotel as Alexis, the Cavalieri. On the morning of May 12th, Serena and her crew were having breakfast by the pool when Alexis, never having met any of them before, plopped right down beside them with his laptop. Serena was annoyed and confused as to why this man sat right next to her when there was a deck full of open tables. She tried to get him to leave by saying there was a rat at his table, but when he didn't budge, she was intrigued and invited him to chat. She gave him her number, and her agent Jill invited him to a match that night. He accepted the invite, and afterward they all headed back to the hotel in the same van. Serena then invited him to join them for dinner. He didn't make it and later headed back to San Francisco. Once he got back, he and Serena started texting, and she invited him to watch her play in Paris. To her surprise, he actually got back on a plane and came to Paris for the weekend. According to Vanity Fair, they had their first date before the French Open started, and he told Stephen Colbert that it was on a Saturday, so it's most plausible that it was on May 23rd. He also got a fresh haircut that day, clearly trying to impress someone. You might be wondering, where does Bria fit into all of this? Well, this is where the relationship timelines overlap. Here's a graphic to illustrate this. On May 7th, Bria put her stuff in storage. On the 12th, Alexis met Serena. On the 13th, he posted the first of what would be many photos of her. That same day, Bria was posting about a restaurant in New York that she was going to miss and confirmed in her comments that she was about to move. Again, no later than the 23rd, Alexis and Serena had their first date. So, when exactly was Alexis single? He wasn't. In a 2017 interview about her solo travels, Bria said the following, quote, "On the day I graduated, that same boyfriend told me that after 5.5 years, he felt we needed a break. I had no apartment, having previously moved all my belongings to a storage unit with the idea that we would move in together." Her graduation wasn't until May 25th. It seems like that break very quickly turned into a breakup, but the fact remains that Alexis started courting Serena while he was in a fully committed relationship with Bria. We have a word for that where I'm from: cheating. And this wasn't Serena's first time dealing with a man who was spoken for. Apparently she has a type, and I don't mean tall Caucasian men. On multiple occasions in 2012, she was seen getting very cozy with her coach Patrick, who was married with 3 children. He got divorced the following year and has since expanded his family with someone else. Apparently, he also has a type. Let's finish up Alexis and Serena's love story, then we'll look at Bria's life after the breakup. Back to May 23rd. Alexis met up with Serena near her apartment in Paris, and they walked around the city for 6 hours. They saw the Eiffel Tower, the Botanical Gardens, the zoo inside it called La Ménagerie, and he bought her some candy at the stalls. He said it was when he stood behind and held her at the zoo that he knew she was the woman he wanted. Again, this is taking place while he had a whole girlfriend who thought she would be moving in with him in a few days. Fast forward to April 2016, almost a year later, that's when he knew he was going to marry Serena. He had the revelation when she FaceTimed him to wish him a happy birthday. For context, Serena is a Jehovah's Witness, therefore she doesn't celebrate birthdays, so it meant a lot to him. That December, after months of planning, he proposed where they had first met, by the pool at the Cavalieri Hotel. A month later, in January of 2017, she found out she was pregnant. In September, they had their first daughter, and in November, they got married. They had their second daughter in 2023, and they're still married today. Now let's go back and pick up where we left off in Bria's timeline. In June 2015, at 32 years old, Bria started her road to healing with a spontaneous road trip down the West Coast. She had just graduated after over 6 years of getting her PhD, so this was the start of a new chapter for her in every way. Unfortunately, the next 2 years of her life were not easy. She opened up to the Muse, saying that she was feeling really lost and fairly depressed. When Alexis blindsided her, she was left homeless and jobless, having to sleep on friends' couches. She didn't mention this part, but I'm sure it didn't help that she also had to watch the man that she loved fall in love with another woman. Serena tried to keep it low-key, but the media caught on pretty fast, with Alexis continuing to post pictures of her and flying out to her matches every other weekend. Back to Bria though, she wasn't homeless and jobless for long, but she had to work 2 full-time jobs in addition to doing freelance work and get 2 roommates to support herself. She said, quote, "It really took a toll on every single aspect of my life," end quote. She wasn't eating or sleeping properly. That lasted for about 4 months before her parents got worried and invited her to move back home for a while. She took 3 months to rest her body, heal her mind, and learn to prioritize self-care. She started working in academia and was kicking butt in her career. She spent some time as a college professor and an assistant director. Unfortunately, in 2017, she was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. After chemotherapy, she went into a 9-month remission before the cancer came back. Thankfully, after a stem cell transplant, she beat cancer for the second time. This is random, but she was featured on an episode of the hidden camera show What Would You Do?, where she protected an elderly blind man from getting scammed. I just thought I would include that to give you an idea of the kind of person she is. She's made many contributions to the fields of microbiology and immunology, having researched illnesses such as tuberculosis and HIV. She has since moved on to the fast-paced business world, investing in biotech startups and becoming partner at the venture capital firm SOSV and chief scientific officer at one of its programs, IndieBio. Dr. Stukes lives a pretty private life these days and has started a family of her own. From what you can see of her online, she seems to be thriving in her career, traveling, and living her best life. What a story. Now let's get into the lessons we can learn from this situation. In no particular order, lesson number 1 is that a man, you know what, you probably already know the answer. A man is not what? That's right, a man is not a plan. Being 100% dependent on someone puts you in a very vulnerable position. Even if they give you their word that they're going to take care of you, and you know they have the means to do so, there's no guarantee that they will forever. Also, if your goal is to be with a very wealthy person, just know that they tend to be more ruthless. Men in all tax brackets can keep women as placeholders, but very powerful ones are used to making decisions based on what will benefit them the most, not how other people are going to feel about their actions. Once Alexis saw a better opportunity in Serena and felt confident enough about his chances, he started investing in her and stopped investing in Bria. It wasn't nice, nor was it kind, but that's how a lot of people operate. Otherwise, they would be the ones getting played. That doesn't mean you need to be a menace, but be vigilant and don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Lesson number 2, don't let a man waste your time. It does not take 5 years for a man to know you're the one. It doesn't take 4, 3, or even 2. As we saw, it only took Alexis a year and a half from meeting Serena to ask her to marry him. Same man, same resources, even at the same time for a bit, yet he treated these women very differently. Bria dated Alexis from around 27 to 32. While every day that you're alive is your prime, if you're a woman who wants to have kids, you especially don't want to waste 5+ years on Mr. Wrong, not to mention the additional time it takes to get over a serious relationship. Number 3, do not uproot your entire life for a relationship, especially not a boyfriend. Bria was willing to leave the city she loved and a social network she had spent the past 9 years building for Alexis. Serena made it clear that Alexis was welcome to join her, but she was not going to slow down or change course for him. And after getting married, he was the one who moved to her. Number 4, always have a backup plan and a way to support yourself if things hit the fan. In other words, even if you're being taken care of, you're spoiled wife, housewife, whatever, never be 100% dependent on him, especially for your survival. If whether or not you have food on the table tonight or a bed to sleep in is dependent on how he feels about you, you have a problem. I support living a soft life and all that, but if something bad happened and your partner was either no longer willing or able to pay your bills, would you be okay, survival-wise? Do you have money saved or a skill that you can use to make money? Do you know where to go if you can't stay in your house? Hopefully you never have to use your backup plan, but having one can literally save your life. I don't know which number we're on now, but the next lesson is that the less you care, the more he does. Let's juxtapose Alexis's 32nd and 33rd birthday gifts from each of the women he was dating at those times. For his 32nd birthday, Bria sacrificed precious time at the end of getting her PhD to travel around the globe with him, and she made him donuts from scratch. I just find that super impressive because I love baking, but I'm still trying to figure out how to make the perfect brownie. But homemade donuts? Like, how do you even make a donut? Either way, she went out of her way for him, and what did it get her? He didn't even post a picture of her for his birthday. He posted a picture of the donuts, didn't tag her, and then dumped her a month later. Whereas on his next birthday, Serena didn't buy him anything, she didn't come to visit, didn't even send a card. All she did was FaceTime him happy birthday, and he was sprung. It's not about what you do, it's about who you are. When Alexis told Vanity Fair why he loved Serena, he said, "I find myself just wanting to be better by simply being around her because of the standard she holds." He had more to say, but it was a great answer. If you ask your partner why they love you and all they mention is what you do for them, run. Bria also frequently posted Alexis on her social media. There are a lot of couple photos and a lot of pictures of just him. Serena didn't post a couple photo until they had been dating for a whole year, and before that she only posted him once in a group photo where you couldn't even tell that they were dating, even though he started posting pictures of her within 24 hours of meeting her, which is giving love bomb, but that's a topic for another day. Even after he had flown across the globe to come see her in Paris for their first date, she still had to meet her near her apartment. She did not go out of her way at all. The irony is that he did everything for Serena that Bria did for him. Next lesson, very important one. If he wanted to, he would. No questions asked, no exceptions. If you watch the show Secret Life, you remember Adrienne and how whenever a guy didn't do what she wanted, she'd hit him with, "You could if you wanted to." I could not stand the character, but I love that line. Nothing is too much for the one. Alexis complained that traveling from Cali to New York to see Bria was exhausting, yet he flew to Paris for a woman he had met one time, then flew around the world to watch her play tennis twice a month, and eventually moved across the country to where she lived without complaint. He even flew with her to Venice once because she said she wanted Italian food. Even if he does have something going on in his life, if you're his dream girl, he's not going to let anything be an excuse to give you less than what you deserve. Say he's strapped for cash and knows that if he doesn't lock you down soon, someone else will. He will get a second job, sell his plasma, mow lawns, whatever it takes to not lose you. And it's not like Serena has some magical power that makes every man just fall for her. For instance, she was dating the rapper Common, and she wasn't his dream girl. He treated her like an option. There's no woman who's going to be compatible with and appreciated by every single man on the planet. You just have to go where you're cherished. If you're not the one for him, he should not be the one for you. And as soon as you realize that, you have to revoke his access to you. Otherwise, you won't be available for the person who will cherish you. Alright, second to last lesson. Don't idolize people and their relationships. You never know what's actually going on behind the scenes. People, especially public figures, even normal people too, they only show you the best parts of their lives. They show you the narrative that they want you to believe about their situation, about them. First, we're all just human beings. Second, there's more to Serena and Alexis's relationship than meets the eye, even more than its shady start. I won't go into detail here, but I will say, if you see your partner treating someone else poorly, especially the person they're leaving for you, don't be surprised when they treat you the same way someday. And last lesson to end this chapter on a high note, if you fall down, you can always get back up. It doesn't matter what has happened in your life. If you're still here, you're still breathing, then you can still reverse it, pick it back up, and move on. Bria went through a lot in her 30s and almost lost everything, even her life. But she never gave up on herself and never stopped fighting. Her resilience paid off, and she's absolutely killing it today. There is no circumstance that you cannot overcome. Within these lessons, you can figure out some steps to take to avoid becoming a placeholder yourself. But let's look at some explicit things that you can do. Here are 4 practices that you can implement today to avoid becoming a placeholder. Number 1 is to get clear on what you want. When manifesting anything, you need to know exactly what your desire is in order to attract what you want and avoid what you don't. What kind of relationship do you want in your heart? The only way you could answer incorrectly is if you're not being honest with yourself. Don't say that you're in no rush, go with the flow girly if you're not. And figure out what he's looking for before you tell him what you want. Otherwise, he can just pretend to want the same thing as you. Number 2, consider courtship over the modern boyfriend-girlfriend type of dating. Number 3, if you must have a boyfriend, set a time limit for how long you'll date him before either the relationship progresses or you move on and free up space for someone else. Number 4, practice rotational dating, aka have a roster. This helps to keep you from getting overly attached to one person, saves time, and levels the playing field. The majority of men you date will be seeing more than one woman at a time. Say you give someone a year. If you're only seeing him and it doesn't work out, that's a whole year that you were unavailable to all the other men who would have been interested. And when I say seeing and dating, I don't mean sleeping with, I mean going out on dates, getting to know each other, gathering data. And that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.
Let's talk about rage, how to overcome rage and anger. Let's talk about it for a little bit. Gina Chumesi here, your favorite psych nurse practitioner. Well, on this internet street, I do videos on healing from toxic, abusive relationship, narcissistic abuse, chaotic, high conflict, narcissistic, red flaggy relationships, and how to find meaning, answers, leveling up after separation, after divorce, and all the in between. Should I stay, should I go? Okay, so when you have gone through betrayal trauma or any type of betrayal that causes you to have a lot of residual trauma from that, literally, depending on how things went with that relationship, situationship, can leave you feeling like you're holding the end of the stick. If you're going through a separation, going through a divorce, and it's high conflict, or you are a partner who is high conflict, difficult personality, constantly about the drama, constantly about not resolving issues, constantly about trying to catch you at your knees, making you feel bad about yourself, impacting your self-esteem, your self-worth, because you've been in that relationship for a long time. If you have kiddos with them, the kids are vulnerable. They are hearing, they are seeing. It's just tearing you apart in the inside. Then that person decides to unapologetically within themselves. So a lot of men are selfish. It's all about selfishness. It's all about them. It's all about control. It's all about power. It's all about dominance. It's all about sex. And it's all about status. So when things need to be resolved, when conflict, disagreements need to be resolved, a lot of men, middle-aged men especially if they're making some money, okay, they would just decide to check out relationship. They would just jump ship and go be with a new woman, because men cannot live without women. Now, this stitches here, including the Serena Williams story, how she got married, and how the ex-girlfriend or ex-fiance of the current husband was using that first girl as a placeholder, being a girlfriend for over 5 years. To me, that's a red flag. After learning all these things that I'm learning post-divorce, ladies, we got to recognize, and we have to be in the mindset of picking ourselves. A lot of men would know that you are the one within 6 months of dating. This shouldn't be more than a year, 2, 3, 5. Unless you're there and it's serving your purpose, because that relationship should also serve you a purpose. You should gain something from it, especially if you're sleeping with them. They are taking pieces of you out of you. We are emotional beings as women. Yes, we work on our emotions, how to regulate it and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, a lot of us have to learn and unlearn some of the mindsets regarding how we deal with the opposite sex. When things like that happen and the man just up and leaves and detaches, and that's the nature of man. That's how they've been conditioned. They'll jump to the nest because they need to have a woman in their lives, where a woman might find themselves being more happy when they're single, more happy when they're widowed and all that stuff. Men cannot live without women because of sex, because of the things that we bring to them, including our bodies, our goodies, our services in the home, cooking, cleaning, the laundry, the children, building legacy, because we are willing to serve. We are open to serve. We're open to do all the things. It can leave you feeling like you're holding the end of the stick, feeling irritation. That goes to anger, and that goes to rage. Okay? It's a real thing when that grief comes on you, especially if you see them now jump onto the nest. Now, don't be wrong. If at the core, don't get me wrong, if at the core of that man, their avoidant attachment style eventually is going to come out, even in that relationship, whatever relationships that they have. You will see, people will notice that this person doesn't know how to regulate their emotions, avoids, doesn't know how to resolve conflict. Is their way or no other way? They're very controlling. They're very domineering. They like to cut people at their knees. They like to shame people, laugh at people, criticize people, make fun of people's vulnerabilities, weaponize people's vulnerabilities, are inconsistent, avoid doing responsibilities, all the stuff. They are very chaotic. They're very, very, very impulsive. They are very angry, but then they're very charming. They like the dopamine hit that comes from getting into new relationships over and over. They can't spend any time by themselves. They're anti spending time with themselves, by themselves, sitting with that feeling, going to therapy, But you will see that and feel like, oh my God, they left you. And sometimes they do leave you hanging. And that's why it's so important as women, we need to make sure we are making our money. You're securing your future. You're securing your money. I've seen my mom. I've seen people being drugged emotionally that can leave you having health issues, mental health issue, depression. Women have committed suicide. Children have committed suicide because of what a man will do in a relationship. There's grave sites right now that women have unalived themselves because of what a man has left them, and it has change the brain chemistry in their brains. All of a sudden, you see them walking around, talking their mouths. I've had women on one-on-one care in the psychiatric unit when I used to work inpatient. Women who have just clocked out. They've become psychotic from chronic stress, chronic trauma, and chronic depression untreated, because a lot of women hide these things. So many women who go into deep depression. You cannot even take care of themselves. Depression is so bad, they can't brush their teeth, they can't get out of bed, they can't take care of this.